he's doing his 8th speech for Advanced Communications Silver, and he is also the president of our club. So please welcome Jay.
Let's talk. Let's talk about talking. We're going to talk about the art of conversation. And how many of you have ever found yourself in this situation? Hi. How's it going? Hi. How are you doing? Pretty good. Pretty good. How do you find that midterm instrument? Right?
It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's right. And do you get questions live?
I don't remember question at all either.
Oh, like that bad. Oh, weird. Pretty cool weather for having hay. Yeah, yeah. How's your weekend?
Oh,
Okay.
how was your dog?
Good. How did you know that I have a dog? Oh, right. That last week when we talked. Yeah, okay. Briefly. Right. Okay. That's something that happens every day, right? In class, with someone that you don't really know, kind of like an acquaintance. You meet them once a week, whenever you sit next to them in class, and it's like, oh, hey. And you start typing, right? Just kind of ignore them. It's very, very awkward conversation. Or how many of you have found yourself in this situation with a friend? Hey, Nikhil, how's it going, man? Good. Good. How are you? Oh, good. Good. Man, did you watch Heroes yesterday? No. Oh man, this was insane. Like Hero, throws time, and you get really into it. And it's really good. And Nikhil just starts laughing because he's my friend, and he's laughing with me. He's not happy. And so I want to kind of cover today the art of conversation. How many of you find that you get through day-to-day life by having pretty normal conversations? You talk about mundane things like the weather. You talk about school. You talk about what's something mundane, like that you do all the time. Your weekend. What did you do Thanksgiving? How was your Halloween? How about Christmas? And that's what I kind of do when I have nothing to say. I'll just kind of roll through all the holidays and be like, okay, Remembrance Day is coming up. What are you doing tomorrow? Oh, not coming to school? Okay. Cool. Cool. And it's funny because a lot of us do this and we're okay with it, but then a lot of the conversations kind of seem meaningless. In that we talk and we talk to different people, and it seems like a routine. So today, the essence of conversation. And I have 3 really basic value tips that I'm going to talk about in the next 15 minutes about how to improve conversing with other people. Now, I'm going to discuss keys on how to go from a successful conversation where you carry it out very eloquently and you're like, how's it going? I'm doing well. How are you? Very good. And you're like on point with all the normal questions that you ask. And they're like, how's the weather? It's like, you know what? It's not raining today. You're like, yeah, it's not raining today. All right. And those are successful conversations. Successful conversations is the fact that you can have a conversation and not seem socially awkward, or a conversation that you can seem normal, not embarrass yourself. But I'm going to kind of transfer that conversation to a more significant one, where the next time somebody talks to you, they're looking forward to it. Because you've come across as an interesting individual, and you've come across as someone who can add value to their lives. Whether it be you're an entertaining person, you're a character, you're always like making faces and, I don't know, making weird accents and noises. I like doing British accents, and I'm horrible at it. Or whether it be talking about rhetoric, I'm like, David. And he's just like, you know what? I'm going to talk about rhetoric. And I'm like, okay, Aristotle. And just drop all these, very intellectual, stimulating conversations. One of the most interesting people in this room that I love talking to, you guys are like, is it me? Is it me? It's actually Edward. It's actually Edward, because none of my conversations with Edward are ever normal. It's always something different. It's always something like, Jay, what do you want in life? I'm like, I don't know what I want in life. And he's like, okay. What have you read lately, Jay, that will improve your life? I'm like, I don't know. And I start asking those questions.
Yeah, you do. Yeah,
I'm picking on you. And so I'm always looking forward to having conversations with Edward because they're always about psychology, or they're always about something that I don't know much about, but the way he presents it is always like, did you know that by doing this you can improve your productivity by 215%? And like, that sounds amazing. Teach me. And it's really great because that's something that I look forward to. And I think that it should be that way with every single person in this room. I don't want to come into Toastmasters every week and be like, Jay Young, how's it going? And then go through that whole routine again. I want to be like, Jay. He has the same name as me. It's like, oh yeah, it's Jay. What up? Yeah, what do you think about that last speech that you made? Awesome. And like, just talking about not necessarily new topics or extravagant intellectual, like super like deep topics, but even just taking the mundane and making it unique, unusual. And so, So we're going to talk about how to add value to the other person. Why should they want to talk to you? And the first one is really easy. Get absurd. Get absurd. Get crazy. I was talking with Diana last week about her your 12 o'clock class, or your boring class. She has the boring science class. I don't remember which course, sorry. And at the start of the semester, she's always like, oh, I fall asleep. The professor is really boring. I can't stay up, even if I have coffee. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, why? And she was like, he talks in monotone like this, and I just can't pay attention because I can't follow him for an hour like this. And that's true. A lot of professors talk that way. Last week, I talked to her again about that class. I'm like, hey, how was class? She's like, hey. I'm like, oh, okay. What was good about it? She's like, well, I didn't fall asleep. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, why didn't you fall asleep? She told me, oh, the professor, it's a new professor, and he's really interesting. I'm like, okay, how is he interesting? And I really wanted to kind of figure out what made someone interesting. She's like, oh, he talks to himself. I'm like, oh. like in class, she's like, yeah. He'll be up there, and it sounds like he's talking to himself, but he's talking to us, but it's not really. He's really talking to himself. He kind of mumbled to himself up here. And that's really interesting to watch, because it's someone that's absurd. So get absurd. Use exaggeration. Use humor. Edward was talking about how to make what makes laughter. And laughter is when you break tension, or when you surprise people, right? One of those two, etc. So a lot of times you're either full of life or you're full of energy, but you're a character. Has anyone here seen Jake and Amir? Yeah. Okay, how many people? Put up your hands. I want to be able to hear. Put up your hands. Jake and Amir. 3 people? Okay. All right. Jake and Amir, for those of you, well, the majority of you guys who don't know, is an online kind of like episode TV show. All the episodes are only like a minute to 3 minutes long. And I love it. I always follow those accents because there's this character, his name is Amir. And he'll be talking normally, and then he'll be talking like this, kind of talking like this, in weird accents, and all of a sudden you just like start listening, and it's really awkward, but it's really interesting, and he has like key phrases that don't mean anything. He's like, oh sheesh y'all, 'twas a dream. 'Twas a dream. And you're just like, what's that mean? But it's really funny because it doesn't mean anything. I was in a political science class today. It was environmental politics. And I think I just put half of you to sleep by studying that. And in this environmental politics class, we were talking about regulations on fisheries. And I just put fisheries. And the professor started by giving us a group assignment. He's like, all right, all of you get into groups of 3. And here's the assignment. By 2048, by the year 2048, all of the global fisheries will be depleted. That's right, we won't have any fish anymore. And I'm like, no. And he's like, all right, now what you have to do is talk about how we can regulate this problem and save our fisheries. And I'm like, yay. So we started talking, and I got really bored really fast, so I needed to stay awake and do something interesting. So in my most serious voice, I told my group, you know, I think I have the key. Like, oh, okay, smarty pants, what's the key? Like, the key to saving our fisheries, to regulating, is for me to rule the world. And I was joking, obviously. And I'm like, if I would rule the world government, I would just dominate the whole world and all the borders. There would be no borders because I would be the world government. And that's not politically feasible, right? It makes no sense at all. And they're like, ha 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 ha. And they kind of just broke the tension. And from that actually brought out a really important point. Border sovereignty in water. Because for a country to have borders, right, it's mostly on land. And then you have the marine border around that country. But past that, it's all international, so it's very hard to regulate that. You guys are like, that's cool. My point is, from that absurdity, it made the conversation a lot more interesting, and we still got on topic about what we're actually doing. Pretty cool. Be animated. Think about a conversation now, all of you. Think about a conversation that you recently had where you had the thought, that person's interesting. Think. And I'm going to get one of you guys to volunteer what that conversation was.